All right, boys and girls, we're on day 2 of comparing and contrasting books. I'm in my backyard today. So we're going to focus today on comparing and contrasting the settings of books. So we're going to study this, and the setting is the place and time a story takes place. To study this skill, we're going to be using the books Amazing Grace by Mary Hoffman and Apples to Oregon by Deborah Hopkinson and Mary Carpenter. Please make sure you listen to both stories before you begin to study the skill. And each day I want you to listen to the stories again to think about that specific skill. It's going to be really important that you do this. All right, let's begin. So go ahead and take out your sheet on settings, and you'll have a bunch of pictures on there that shows what different types of settings are. We're gonna look at those. We're gonna look at the
So let's look at some elements of settings. First, there's the time. How does the author use the time to tell the story? The author could be focusing on the time of day. Is it morning, noon, evening, nighttime? Is it the time of year? Is it winter, spring, summer, or fall? Or is it the time in history? Does this story take place in the past? Does it take place today? Does it take place in the future? Each time will make you feel a certain way. I want you to focus on how the time makes you feel. You could also be focusing on place for this setting. Maybe it's in a room, or a building, or a city. Maybe it's outside somewhere. Maybe you're at a place, or maybe you're at a rural place. Each story, the place is almost like a character, and it makes you feel a certain way. And finally, there's the occasion. Maybe the story takes place during a war. How does that make you feel? Or maybe it takes place during a celebration of some kind. And how does that make you feel? Maybe the story takes place at an event in history. And think about how that makes you feel. And finally, maybe this story takes place during some kind of natural event, like a hurricane or a forest fire, or some element that's going on in history or at this point in time. Each part of the setting, the author uses it to help you feel a certain way. I want you to focus on these as you listen to the two stories of Amazing Grace and Apples to Oregon. Okay, go ahead and grab this sheet. You can click on the link, or if maybe you printed it off, or you're just writing it on another sheet of paper. Either way, it's fine. It all works. You're going to circle setting today. Because we're going to compare and contrast the setting of Amazing Grace and Apples to Oregon. I want you to find elements of the setting that are the same in both stories, and what elements are only in Amazing Grace, and what elements are only in Apples to Oregon. So let's look at this first one. So you're going to say Amazing Grace and Apples to Oregon have similar settings because they both have what? And then when you contrast them, how are they different? You're going to say Amazing Grace and Apples to Oregon have different settings because Grace has what about its setting is different than Apples to Oregon? And Apples has what about it that makes it different than Amazing Grace? All right, good luck. All right, boys and girls. So today, now that you've finished this assignment, or maybe you're going to go get working on it right now, but when you're finished with it, I want you to go and continue reading your chapter books, but I want you to focus on the setting. How does the author use the setting to make you feel a certain way? Notice the time, notice the place, and notice the occasion that's happening in the story. And notice how those change throughout the story and how it changes to make you feel.
All right, have fun reading your books. Good luck.